Our film begins with a true story about a young Indian man in one of the Gulf countries. The story opens at the Saudi Arabian airport, where two young Indians, Najeeb and Hakim, stand before the passport officer. They struggle to communicate in Arabic, repeatedly saying, "Help us, help us." After their passports are checked, they head to the reception hall to find their sponsor, but he is nowhere to be seen. Confused and unsure of what to do, they approach an Indian worker at the airport. He takes their sponsor's number and tries calling from the airport phone, but no one answers. The worker explains that it's Friday, a day off in Saudi Arabia. The number they dialed is most likely the company's office, which is closed. He reassures them that their sponsor is probably on the way, just delayed by traffic. Najeeb and Hakim leave the airport and wait outside. After a while, a man approaches, stares at them intently, and angrily asks Najeeb if his name is Abdullah and who he is with. Since the two don't understand him, he calls them crazy and walks off. Moments later, he returns, takes their passports, checks them, and confirms that they are the workers he came to pick up. Relieved, Najeeb and Hakim follow him to his car. On the way, Najeeb politely asks for water, but the sponsor yells at him in Arabic, telling him not to talk and to hurry into the car. When Najeeb tries to sit in the front, the sponsor grows angry again and orders them to sit in the back with their luggage. Hakim feels upset. The car is just a small pickup truck, and they must ride in the uncovered rear, while he saw Sri Lankan workers from the same flight being picked up in air-conditioned cars. But Najeeb urges him to stay quiet and avoid angering the sponsor. As they travel, Najeeb and Hakim think about calling their families to let them know they've arrived safely. After a long, cold journey, Hakim falls asleep from exhaustion, and Najeeb gently covers him. Eventually, they reach the desert, where the sponsor calls someone named Abu Khaled. He asks Hakim to step out while ordering Najeeb to stay inside. Concerned, Najeeb follows and insists they must remain together and need a phone to call their families. Abu Khaled takes Hakim away, shutting the door behind him. Hakim cries out for Najeeb, begging not to be left behind, but Najeeb is struck by the sponsor and forced into the car. Soon after, Najeeb is delivered to another desert location and handed over to a man named Yasser, who is told to keep him until the morning. Najeeb tries to explain that he needs a phone, but Yasser only says tomorrow in Arabic, instructing him to sleep. Najeeb, not understanding, then notices an old man nearby, weak, with torn clothes and a body that looks as if it hasn't touched water in years. Thinking he might be Indian, Najeeb asks about a phone and says he is very thirsty. The old man points to a barrel of water. Najeeb rushes to drink, showing just how parched he is. Najeeb enters Yasser's tent, spreads a cloth on the ground, and lies down. The film then flashes back to India, showing Najeeb as a construction worker, fetching water from underground. A coworker offers him an imported cigarette brought from the Gulf by his brother-in-law, Karuva. He also offers to help Najeeb get a visa. Najeeb asks about the cost, admitting he has no money and would need to sell his house. His coworker suggests mortgaging it, promising he could recover the expense in just 2 months of work. Later, Najeeb meets Karuva, hands him the money, and explains that he sold all his belongings and gold to afford the visa. Back home, Najeeb's wife, Sinu, sits with his mother. Najeeb then comes home, requests his mother's special biryani before he leaves, and expresses concern for Sinu, who is pregnant. The scene shifts back to the desert, where Yasser wakes up, finds Najeeb sleeping beside him, and angrily kicks him out, warning never to enter his tent again. Najeeb, not understanding, is left shivering outside, unsure where to sleep. The next morning, he wakes to the sound of goats. The old man gives him goat's milk and instructs him to take it to Yasser. Hungry, Najeeb hesitates, but the man yells that the milk is not for him. Najeeb delivers it to Yasser, who drinks it and gestures for him to meet the old man outside, as he would explain his job. But Najeeb, not understanding Arabic, tries to speak in Hindi. This frustrates Yasser, who warns him not to speak again, claiming he has a headache. Najeeb pleads, saying he came to work for a company and wants to return to the airport, but Yasser harshly kicks him out and orders the old man to train him. Soon after, the sponsor arrives. Najeeb runs to him, begging for a phone call, but the sponsor instead hands him a sack and orders him to carry it into the tent. Najeeb shows him his visa papers and passport, pointing to Karuva's number, but the sponsor tears them apart. Najeeb, devastated, gathers the torn pieces in disbelief. Later, as the sponsor bakes bread with Yasser, he offers some to Najeeb, who eats desperately, choking in his hunger. Yasser teaches him to soak it in water before eating. Afterward, Najeeb begs the old man to show him the road to escape, but the old man weakly replies that it's too far. Najeeb then recalls memories of Sinu, her pregnancy, their plans to name the baby Safia if it's a girl or Nabil if it's a boy, and the sadness of his farewell at home. Back in the desert, Najeeb uses water to clean himself after relieving himself, but Yasser scolds him, saying water is not for such use. The old man warns him that next time he'll have to use sand instead. One day, an Indian worker from the water company arrives to refill the tanks. Najeeb pleads with him to take him away, but before anything can happen, the sponsor appears and accuses the worker of helping Najeeb escape. He then beats Najeeb with his agal headband cord. When Najeeb instinctively grabs his hand to defend himself, the sponsor explodes in rage, retrieves his rifle, and strikes Najeeb on the head, threatening to kill and bury him in the desert. As Najeeb lies on the ground, he sees water running over the sand, triggering memories of home, swimming joyfully in the river with Sinu, their love, and their wedding day. Returning to reality, tears stream down his face as he cries out her name in anguish. Sinu. Later that night, Najeeb sees the old man tending to the camels and feeding them. He asks how long he has been living and working there, but the old man responds with a strange song, showing signs of madness and instability. The next morning, Yasser shouts at Najeeb for still being asleep. Startled, Najeeb realizes Yasser wants him to milk the goats, though he doesn't know how. Forced to obey, he tries, but the goat kicks him. Angered, Yasser strikes the goat to calm it so Najeeb can continue. Najeeb then asks about the old man, noticing he has disappeared, but Yasser ignores him and orders him to hurry with the milking or face punishment. Terrified, Najeeb struggles with the goats until he notices two sheep headbutting each other. When he tries to intervene, one kicks him. As he bends in pain, another charges, knocking him unconscious. At that moment, the sponsor arrives and fires a rifle into the air, scattering the animals. He splashes water on Najeeb to wake him and gives him a sip, then angrily orders him to gather the herd again, warning he'll be deprived of water for the day if he fails. Weak and in pain, Najeeb struggles, but then a goat calmly approaches and begins calling to the others. The herd returns without Najeeb chasing them. Overwhelmed, Najeeb weeps, feeling this small mercy as a blessing from God. Days turn into months, and months into years. Najeeb's appearance changes completely. One day, he catches sight of himself in a car mirror, shocked at his long beard and ragged look. The sponsor angrily smashes the mirror, mocking him. Do you still think you're handsome? Broken, Najeeb takes a shard to trim his beard but fails, crying bitterly as humiliation overwhelms him. Looking up to the sky, he questions God, wondering if this suffering is his will. Soon after, Najeeb stumbles upon vultures feeding on a corpse, the old man's body. Horrified, he drives them away, then sits crying, clutching the jar of pickles his mother once gave him, calling out for her comfort. In desperation, he runs across the desert, but the sponsor chases him on a camel. He shoots Najeeb in the leg, beats him viciously, and ties him among the goats. That night, bleeding and thirsty, Najeeb drinks from the same trough as the animals. The next morning, rain finally falls. Najeeb shelters with the goats beneath the rocks, eating his last piece of bread and even sharing it with the animals. Soon after, he hears another herd approaching. To his shock, it's Hakim. Despite his changed appearance, Najeeb recognizes him by his voice. They embrace, but Najeeb, hopeless, admits he has failed many escape attempts. Hakim, however, urges him not to give up. Later, Najeeb secretly receives a message from Hakim, who had been beaten for speaking to him. In it, he explains he has met an African man named Ibrahim, who might help them escape. For the first time in years, Najeeb feels hope. Eventually, Najeeb meets Ibrahim, who explains that during the sponsor's daughter's wedding, when everyone will be distracted, they will have their chance to escape. On the wedding day, Najeeb is locked among the sheep, given only a small piece of meat by the sponsor. At dawn, Yasser leaves for the wedding, and Najeeb seizes the opportunity. He washes, drinks water joyfully, and changes into his old clothes, though they now hang loosely from his frail body. Saddened, he bids farewell to the goats and camels who had been his only companions. That night, Najeeb, Hakim, and Ibrahim flee into the desert. As they walk, exhaustion overwhelms Hakim. Ibrahim risks sneaking into a tent to find water, but is spotted and shot at. Miraculously, he escapes and they continue. The desert sun grows merciless. With no food or water, Najeeb's bare feet swell and blister. Ibrahim tears his own clothes to wrap them, protecting him from the burning sand. Hakim begins hallucinating, seeing sand as water, grabbing and eating it before collapsing, blood pouring from his mouth. In Najeeb's arms, Hakim dies. Najeeb breaks down in despair, refusing to abandon him, but a sandstorm soon buries them in grief and dust. Heartbroken, Najeeb continues with Ibrahim, though his will is fading. Eventually, Ibrahim also collapses, his legs failing. Just then, they spot a lizard leading them to a hidden oasis, a small well with palm trees and dates. They drink carefully, regaining some strength. As they continue, they discover tire tracks and a biscuit wrapper, signs of the road. Their hope returns, but the trail leads nowhere. Exhausted, Najeeb later awakens to find Ibrahim gone, leaving behind only a bottle of water and a single date. Najeeb assumes Ibrahim gave up and ended his life. Alone, Najeeb continues walking, finishing his last drop of water and the date. Finally, he stumbles upon a road. Cars pass, but none stop, frightened by his wild appearance. He waits all night until morning, when a kind-hearted man pulls over. Though Najeeb trembles in fear, the man reassures him, gives him water, and drives him to the city. For the first time in years, Najeeb feels human kindness again. In the city, a group of Indians take him in. They help him bathe, shave his beard, cut his hair, and nurse him back to health. One helps him call his family. Hearing his wife's voice and his young son, named Nabil as they had once agreed, Najeeb breaks down in tears. Soon after, Najeeb visits the police station for new documents and a passport. There, he is shocked to see Ibrahim's picture posted among the missing. He also discovers the horrific truth. The man who had taken him from the airport was not his real sponsor. He had kidnapped Najeeb, posing as his sponsor, and forced him into slavery, exploiting his inability to understand Arabic. Najeeb collapses, weeping uncontrollably. In the end, he spends 3 months in prison until his exit permit is issued. While other travelers leave with bags full of goods and electronics, Najeeb walks away with nothing but the broken pieces of his life, his health, and his survival. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.